This will hopefully convince you that we need to have Media Literacy 3.0. Andy Warhol is everywhere. In the 1960s, artists started doing work where they were bringing pop culture onto the canvas. It wasn't just paints. Robert Rauschenberg freaked everybody out. Well, by the late 60s, you have Tati making films where the humans are just as much of props as the commodities around them. This is in a shopping center. Then you have Andy Warhol himself, who was almost like a walking art piece. In other words, he had become his art. He was a reflection of the world he was in. Today, this is what I see students as. They are informed by the world around them. The world around them, which is a huge part of it is media, informs their identity and how they think of themselves. I come from a very different background. I'm a little older than the students I teach, obviously. I was an artist for a little while. I really wanted to be Stan Brakhage, but then I realized that doing catering gigs for 25 years, puts food on the table, but hi, I'd like to buy a house at some point. So I started working in education. It's debatable on whether that will afford me a house either. But here I am doing some silly education bit, colonial fare, yikes. Well, regardless, I want to make a Media Literacy 3.0 class where it marries my love for film with my love for teaching. Let's back up a little bit. Inspiration. I think we are at a time very similar to that of Gutenberg. Johannes Gutenberg had this great invention. And at the time he came up with this great invention, well, the only people that could read were these guys. And they did so because, well, they wrote the Bible. So literacy was really contained and housed and held just by a couple people, priests and monks, and it was not being spread to the masses. Well, he creates the printing press, Johannes Gutenberg does, and books start to get in the hands of the masses and people start to read. Are we in an age that is just like that? I would say yes. So we need to be teaching our students how to responsibly consume and produce media. I come from a background that is informed by Louis Buñuel. I think that media is all fabricated. It's not real, and it's certainly not a part of me. So I'm always fighting against it. Buñuel made a film called Land Without Bread, and he shows these people that live in the northern mountains of Spain. They're ignorant, they can't read, they are partially deformed and disabled, and he was really feeding stereotypes that existed in mainstream Spain of that particular region. Because really, he just took actors from a circus, put them in the mountains, and made it seem like he was doing a documentary, when really he was pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. It was a joke because he was showing the power of media, how it can compartmentalize and change our reality, when in reality it wasn't real at all. So media isn't real. Well, that's changed. Giles Deleuze says we are floating identity generators, that identity is fluid and we can take on tons of different identities. As a result, I watch students respond to the anti-suicide song made by the artist Logic. They're crying, and when he has a question and answer session with them, they say that his music is getting them through life when they have hard times. In other words, unlike Buñuel, or my stance, which is like Buñuel, the student of today believes that media is actually a part of them. It is a part of their identity. It is who they are. It informs who they are. So, Media Literacy 3.0 starts with critical consumption, teaching students how to critically consume media. Then, responsible production. Here's Christian Markley, great artist, and he makes marvelous pieces of media that are responsible. Then civic engagement, taking the work that our students can make and actually putting it out there to create change or ignite change for the better. Media Literacy 1.0, this is the first phase. Take charge of your identity. Here's Tom Cruise in Minority Report, and he's surrounded by holograms that are all personalizing their advertisements to him, knowing what he needs to buy, etc. We're not far from this world. In order to take charge of yourself, you need to know how to critically consume media in order to know what's worth taking in and what you need to give the stiff arm to. Here is Bruce Conner, great artist, and he's most notably known for always challenging the status quo. So when you become a digital author, after learning how to critically consume, well, then you need to responsibly create. And to responsibly create, you need to challenge the status quo, doing things that are different, seeing people that are different, not following the same old stereotypes over and over again. That's also what Luther Price does. When I first saw one of his films, I was blown away. I knew I was seeing the work of a master, but I couldn't put the pieces together. After studying it, I saw that he was constantly challenging conventions in the way that we think we see movies and film and media. And of course, civic engagement is the last piece. It rounds out the 3.0. Julian Assange makes WikiLeaks, and so he's using digital media to make all information transparent, for better or for worse, so that people can see what their governments are up to, and he protects those whistleblowers that make that information transparent. Also, civic engagement. Here's Will Smith with Jada Pinkett Smith dumping water on him. This phenomenon was a couple of years ago. Spread by social media was the ice cold bucket of water being dumped on you to raise money for a cause. Well, it raised millions of dollars and became a total phenomenon. That's the power of media. That's civic engagement. So, to do this course, really need to back up and teach students what media is. And basically, media is in 5 pieces. You have movies, you have news, you have advertisements. You also now have websites, and the now new evolution of websites might be apps for your phone, but now you'll be able to compile all different types of media on one interface. And then, of course, you have television, which now we don't have to sit back and wait for our program to come on, but we can get it a la carte whenever we want. Next question I pose to my students is, what elements compose media? So I want them to know what media is and to know how to responsibly consume it. They need to know what the heck it is. Well, it's images. Here's the movie Blow Up, famous scene where she's looking off at the person they think may have eventually caused the crime. Time, Michael Snow's Wavelength, great film that makes you very aware of the fact that film takes time. And then sequence, this is Eisenstein in a sequence of his films where he did a lot of match cutting or A-B cutting in order to inform one shot to the other to generate metaphors. Other elements that compose media is sound. So breaking up the media into its pieces. Here's the conversation with Gene Hackman where he hears a crime by picking through the sound that he had recorded when he wasn't even intending to hear it. Movement. Ernie Gear's Serene Velocity. He took a camera, put it in one place in the hallway, moved it 10 feet closer, moved it 10 feet back, 10 feet closer. He created what looked like movement when really the camera was still. It's because persistence of vision. And of course, space. John Ford was a master of space. When he made the film The Searchers, or plenty other films, he set it in Monument Valley. That place became such a mythology to inform his films. Next part of media literacy is revealing that students have the power to comment on their work. So using these 7 questions of media literacy modified from Hobbes's 5 questions, students are able to go and actually now use screencast technology to question the work that is always around them and the advertisements that are around them to see where the stereotypes lie. And then the next phase is authorship. And so I'd like to have students create PSAs so they learn about a need in their society and they respond to that need. And big time, they have an authentic audience. They're not creating things just for their teacher to see. So making movies and making media and putting those media onto platforms that lots of people will see, even people way outside of their community. So what Media 3.0 will do is it will allow students to not function in a vacuum anymore. The teacher's not the only one who sees their work. Will Richardson says, tear down the walls in schools. Let people openly communicate through all different types of media. And this is the student of tomorrow, is a classroom without walls. So using different types of media and or using different ways, forms of technology in order to communicate all around the world and get in touch with people you never would have gotten in touch with before.